And here we are back in the art room, Mrs. Larrabee here. I really enjoyed interviewing Katy Smith and learning a little bit more about what arts look like to her and about her processes. We're going to base our project today off of what we learned and heard from Mrs. Smith. One of the things is plein air, which is the French term for outdoors. So we're going to talk indoors here for a moment. I'm going to go through our entire lesson with you. It's not very long. And then I'm going to send you somewhere outdoors. If you're unable to safely go outside wherever you are, look out a window. We're going to be looking outdoors at things in its natural lighting. And we're going to be practicing. That was one of the things that stuck out to me in this interview, was the idea that we're not always going for a perfect work of art or a finished work of art, but we're planning, we're practicing, and we're working towards it, just as you would in sports or in music, even in our schoolwork, we're practicing and we're learning. And even if art's not your thing and you think, Mrs. Larrabee, I don't plan on being an artist, just like Mrs. Smith shared, she didn't plan on it either until her adult life, when she realized, hey, I think this is my thing. That even if it's not your thing, trust me that these are good processes just for our brain. It's just brain stretching and problem solving, and just have fun with it. I like that about our interview too, when she said, well, I just had fun with it. So have fun today, okay? All right, so the supplies you're going to need is a piece of paper, a pencil, and your colored pencils or crayons, whichever you have. One thing also that you will need is either a clipboard or a piece of cardboard, or maybe a notebook, a hardback book that you can use as something to put your paper on when you go outside, because you'll need something to press against. So you don't want to use like a really nice book and mess up the cover of it, but maybe you have, like my notebook here, something plastic that you can take out. We're going to be going outside in a little while and practicing our own plein air sketch. We won't be painting today, but we'll be sketching. Let's listen for just a moment to Mrs. Smith as she tells us about her process of preparing for a painting with her sketchbook.
It's good to play with compositions in your sketchbook before you go and do your finished painting, because if there's an issue, you can find out here instead of after you've committed a whole bunch of time. The goal isn't necessarily to produce this amazing work of art every time that you sit down to draw or paint. It's really just about learning.
All right, so I'm going to clear my workspace off. And let's start. I was just going to show you my sketchbook as I was planning the lesson. These are a couple of my little sketches. We're going to do something similar, but maybe on a larger scale. I spent some time outdoors of my classroom. You might recognize some of these scenes because that might be what your homeschool looks like as well. This was at Patterson Road. These pictures are from. And I just took some time to do some sketching, some very small sketching. And I wanted to just point out that sometimes we look outside and think there's nothing to sketch here. It's a playground, or it's just a parking lot, or whatever. But we're going to talk a little bit about looking for that beauty that's around us too, or the things, maybe not beauty, maybe that's not the word you would use, maybe those things that are interesting around you, things that have design or composition. And one of the ways we do that is just observation. So I wanted to show you this picture that I took. I printed it out because this was a little easier than me actually taking you outside to show you. One of the things that we can do is we use a little bit of a viewfinder. You could actually cut something out of cardstock, but here's what I do when I'm out. I just make an L with my hands. One of them's upside down. And I use it to go through my picture and find areas that look interesting. So I might start over here, and I could do it this way. That's actually kind of cool. Those 3 basketball hoops in a row. I actually kind of like that. I might have to draw that next. Or I could come over here, and I think this palm tree is really neat with the houses in the background, and you know, something in the middle here, maybe this house, maybe you want more sky and you just have a tree in the corner. All of these things, when you start to break it down, you realize you have, I have probably 3 really things that interest me in this one picture that at first glance might just look like basketball hoops on a playground. So I want, when you go out, don't go yet, I want you to go out, I want you to make your little viewfinder, look around, and kind of decide what's something that catches my interest, what's a composition or something that I think would be kind of cool. And that's what we're going to focus on today. I want to show you this picture. I've squared out the part of the composition that I'm going to use for this picture. And here's what I want us to do with our paper. You could do this tiny little bit indoors with me right now before you head out. I want you to make a square on your paper. You can choose whether you make 1, 2, or 3. I'm okay with any. You might find that if you practice more than once, you'll like your results a little more. Maybe there's one that you really enjoy. I'm going to put 2 squares on my paper. And then I'm going to take a look at this picture. When you're outdoors, you'll just be looking at the scene outdoors while you're there. And I'm going to choose 3 things in this picture that stand out to me. So when I look at this, the first 3 things that stand out to me are the basketball goal in the front, that tree in the back that I don't think is actually a tree. I think that's maybe a cell phone tower. And I can just barely see the hills in the background. So those are the 3 main things that stand out to me. And while I'm looking at it, I'm going to start to put on my paper. So I'm going to treat each of these little squares that I drew as my piece of paper. Remember, we're just doing sketches. Here's one sketch. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to look, my basketball goal in this picture is to the side, and I'm simply going to draw the shapes that I see. That basketball goal is kind of rounded at the top. So flat at the bottom, round at the top. All right, and there's a pole that comes down behind it. For any of my friends that think, Mrs. Larrabee, I don't draw. Okay, add shapes to your paper. I can draw a straight line with a curve on top. I can draw a really long rectangle on the bottom. I'm looking at the basketball goal. Here's a little clue. We know that basketball goals are round from the top, but I'm not looking at this picture from the top, am I? I'm looking from the side, and this basketball goal looks like a straight line. And then there's a net hanging down here. That's all I would do for the basketball goal. All right, so for the tree line in the back, I'm going to look. This not real tree is pretty close to the top, but not touching. So it's going to be somewhere right here. And I'm simply going to outline the trees. I'm not drawing every leaf or every branch even. I'm just outlining the trees. They stay above the basketball goal like this. So now I've outlined the trees. And then in the very, very background, I can see the hills. So I'm going to take this somewhere down in here from the tree. It's pretty straight, and there's like one little hook in it. And then it goes up a little and back down. I'm using sketching lines. I'm not pressing hard. That way I can go back and edit out and erase things that I don't want. All right, so there's my 3 things. And after I put my 3 things in, I feel like something's missing here. So I'm going to add the fence that's running in the background. You may do your 3 and feel like you have a completed composition. Nothing's missing from your picture. But here I'm going to add this fence line. All right, and that would be it for my sketch. I would encourage you to do 2 or 3 of these. So maybe now I would go back and I would do this part with the 3 basketball goals that I thought looked interesting. So I would draw the basketball goals, I would draw the trees, and then maybe this line where the grass is for that one. All right, so don't go anywhere yet. I want to talk about step 2, and then we'll review the steps and I'll send you out to do yours. Let's hear from Mrs. Smith one more time.
Now when I'm going to be doing a painting, I'll grab out my sketchbook and I'll do a quick little value study. So here are a few value studies I've done for a few different paintings. This one is of Morro Bay. You can see the Morro Rock back here and trees on either side and the sea here in the middle. This one's at Montana de Oro. This one you can see the values a little better. When I say values, I'm talking about lights medium colors or tones and dark. So the light would be the sky here in the background, and the mediums would be in this section here, and then your darks are all the foliage, the tree branches and leaves. So it's called a no-tan. It's basically just a quick value study that shows you the composition if it were broken down into maybe 3 or 4 shades between white and black. So white, light gray, medium gray, dark gray, black, something in that range. It's a value study. And it's really helpful to do that before you do your actual painting, so that you remember to stay within those value ranges.
Okay, so next we're going to look at value. Remember, value is the darkness or lightness of a color. We use that symbol when we say our elements of art to remind us. So we're going to choose one color from our box. I know this might be challenging, and we love all the pretty colors. Maybe you want to stick with just your pencil. That's fine too. So choose one color. I've already pulled my green out. Choose one color. You're only going to use one. And next we're going to look back at that picture again, or I'm going to look at my picture. You're going to be looking out at the view in front of you. And I'm going to choose the area that's the darkest in my picture. The darkest in my picture would be the trees for sure. So I'm going to color those darkest. We remember that this is a sketch. We're doing it quickly. We're not spending too much time. We're not laboring over every little edge, because this would be kind of a study or a practice before a painting. So I just want to make sure that I know where all my values are and I'm pleased with how they look on my paper. So I colored in where my trees go as the darkest part of my picture. All right. The next darkest part of my picture would be our medium tones. And in this picture, I feel like the basketball goal and the hills are both very light, but they're a little darker than the lightest part, which would definitely be the sky. So I'm trying to color this in a little more darkly. I'm going to add a little bit of color, more of a medium tone, to my basketball goal, and a medium tone to my hills in the background. I'm simply spreading out my lines a little more. Kind of gives the illusion of the color without adding too much. And then I would do nothing with the sky, because it is the lightest tone in my picture. Below my fence line here is almost as dark as the trees, but not quite. So this is my 3 main tones. I'm gonna add a 3rd tone down here, just so I remember if I were to go back and paint this, that this is also the trees shining through the chain link fence. But they're not quite as dark. The fence kind of obscures them, but you know what? As I compare them to the post here, where I've done a medium tone, they're darker than that. So I want to make sure that that's reflective. And just that little bit where I run into this and it starts to blend in, it gives me a chance to look again, think again, consider what it is. It's almost like putting a puzzle together and you're getting to draw the pieces yourself. You are in control. All right, and that is simply it. This is our value study. We did a little plein air. We went out and we drew from what was around us. And then we did a little bit of a value study to see what our darkest parts would be, our medium parts, and our lightest parts. And that's all that we have for our lesson this week. If you have paint at home and this project interests you, I would encourage you to transfer this to a piece of paper and paint it. I think that would be so neat. Please share that with me if you do. I would love to see it. All right, well, I want you guys to gather your supplies. You're going to draw. Remember, you're going to use your viewfinder or your hands to decide something that looks interesting to you in your environment. You're going to choose 3 things out of that environment to add to your paper, and you're going to draw them using shapes. So you'll draw the outline of a tree, but not all the branches and the leaves. You'll draw the outline of the hills, but not every little cloud in the sky. And then you're going to choose one color to add the values in. And it is okay, this looks like a sketch. It should look like a sketch because we are sketching today. When you're finished, please make sure you put it in your art portfolio in case we refer back to it for another project. I hope that you guys have fun with this exercise and enjoy some time outdoors.